Okay, so, imagine you're 4.5 feet tall. No weapons. No fire. And the animals around you are bigger, faster, and hungrier than you are. That was just Tuesday. For 2 million years. Scientists have found hominid skulls with puncture marks in them, spaced exactly like the canine teeth of a leopard. Not from a fight. From a hunt. Our ancestors weren't just living alongside predators. For a huge stretch of human history, we were considered food. And here's what actually keeps me up at night about this. It wasn't rare. Some fossil sites show a disturbing number of early hominid remains with bite marks, claw marks, tooth punctures, clear signs they didn't just die out there. They were eaten. So if that's true, if we really were prey, weak, slow, defenseless prey, how are you and I sitting here right now? Stay with me on this one, because the answer isn't luck. It's a chain of 5 brutal decisions our ancestors made, and if even one of them had gone differently, none of us would exist. I'm going to walk you through exactly how we went from easy meal to the most feared thing on the entire continent. And by the end, you'll understand something about your own instincts, the ones you still have right now, that's going to genuinely creep you out. Let's get into it. Let's actually set the scene, because I don't think people grasp how outmatched we were. 2 to 3 million years ago. African savanna. Small groups of hominids, early relatives like Australopithecus, standing maybe 4 to 5 feet tall, 90 pounds, no claws, no fangs, no armor, no real speed. Basically a soft, upright, defenseless target walking around in broad daylight. Now here's who they were sharing that land with. Lions, bigger than the ones alive today. Saber-toothed cats built purely for one devastating strike. Ancient hyenas the size of modern lions, with a bite force strong enough to crack open thick bone. And crocodiles waiting at the only water source for miles, because early humans had no choice but to drink from the same rivers their predators lived in. Researchers who study bite marks on hominid bones have found a striking pattern. A lot of these individuals weren't scavenged after they died of something else. The damage lines up with active hunting. By every normal rule of nature, that should have been the end of us. A weak, slow species like that should not have survived 100,000 years, let alone 2 million. But it did. And the how is honestly one of the wildest survival stories in existence. But I'm not going to give it to you all at once. Let's start with the predator that probably killed more early humans than anything else on this list. Big cats. Let's talk about them first, because they were the scariest threat for one specific reason: you never saw it coming. Saber-toothed cats like Megantherian weren't built for a long chase. They were built for one single, perfect ambush. Get within a few feet of you, completely silent, and then explode forward, driving 4-inch canines straight into the throat. One motion. Over before you understood what was happening. For a hominid with no weapon, no cover, and nowhere to run? That's not really a fight. That's an execution. Brace yourself for this one. Most individual hominids who faced that kind of ambush alone did not survive it. Predation is considered one of the leading causes of early hominid death, right up there with disease and starvation. But, and stay with me here, because this is the first real twist in the story, early humans figured out something that changed the math completely. A lone hominid facing a saber-tooth was basically dead. But a group facing that same cat? That's a different animal entirely. And when I tell you how they used that, in a few minutes, you're going to realize it's the exact same trick your brain still uses today when you're walking somewhere alone at night. Seriously, hold that thought. Because cats weren't even the predator that scared me the most researching this. That title goes to something a lot less glamorous. Hyenas. Ancient hyenas weren't stealth hunters like the cats. They didn't need to be. What they had instead was raw power, one of the strongest bite forces, pound for pound, of any predator on that landscape, strong enough to crush bone and get at the marrow inside. And that detail matters more than it sounds like. Because it means when a hyena caught a hominid, it wasn't just eating the meat, it was destroying the skeleton. Which is a big part of why we have so few complete early human fossils. In a lot of cases, there just wasn't enough left. They also hunted in packs. Coordinated. Patient. They didn't need an ambush, they just needed you to slip up once. Injured, alone, downwind, too close to a den at the wrong time of day. That was enough. Now, here's the part that genuinely surprised me when I first read about it. At a certain point, our ancestors didn't just avoid hyenas. They started stealing from them. Walking up to a fresh hyena kill and taking the meat, sometimes with the hyenas still nearby. That sounds insane. But it's actually one of the smartest moves in this entire story, because it means our ancestors weren't just avoiding danger anymore, they'd started using it. Would you have had the nerve to try that? Because there's one more predator on this list that didn't even give you the option to be brave. It just waited. Think about this for a second. You can dodge a lion's territory. You can stay away from a hyena den. But you cannot avoid water. And in the African savanna, water meant crocodiles. A crocodile doesn't chase. It doesn't need a plan. It just needs patience, sitting motionless for hours, waiting for one moment where a thirsty, exhausted hominid gets careless at the edge of a river. That moment came constantly. Every single day, without exception. There was no version of early human life that didn't require standing at the water's edge, vulnerable, at the one spot every predator on the savanna also knew to check. Paleontologists have actually matched crocodile tooth patterns to bite marks on hominid remains, direct, physical proof that this wasn't a rare event. It happened again and again, generation after generation. And think about what that does over hundreds of thousands of years. Every hominid who survived long enough to have children was, in some small way, a little more cautious, a little more alert, a little better at reading danger than the ones who didn't make it. Nature was running a constant filter. And slowly, the survivors started getting smarter about it. Which brings us to the actual turning point. Everything up to now has been about how humans died. Now let's talk about the 5 moves that changed everything. Move 1: Fire. This is the single biggest game changer in the entire story. Evidence of controlled fire use goes back at least 1 million years, and once early humans could keep a flame burning through the night, everything changed. Big cats, hyenas, all of them, hardwired with an instinctive fear of fire. For the first time ever, humans could claim the night. The most dangerous hours of the day just stopped being as dangerous. Move 2: Weapons. Sharpened sticks. Stone-tipped spears. Accurate throwing. Suddenly a 4-foot-tall hominid had reach, the ability to hurt something dangerous before it got close enough to hurt them back. This one change is a huge part of why we stopped being purely prey. Move 3: Sticking together. Remember what I told you to hold on to back in part 2? Here it is. A lone hominid facing a predator was basically helpless. But a group of a dozen of them, shouting, throwing rocks, moving as one unit, could actually drive a lion off. Predators avoid unnecessary risk. A coordinated group wasn't easy anymore, it was a liability not worth the danger. A lot of researchers think this exact pressure, cooperate or die, is part of what pushed early human brains toward more complex social behavior, and eventually, language. Move 4: Stealing the kill. That hyena theft habit I mentioned? Early humans got bold enough to use fire and numbers to drive a predator off its own kill and take the meat for themselves. Aggressive, risky, but it meant every predator's hard work could become a human meal, without the danger of the actual hunt. Move 5: High ground. Caves. Rock ledges. Even sleeping up in trees. Anywhere that gave early humans a defensible position during the one time of day they were most vulnerable, asleep, unaware, unable to react. Put those 5 together: fire, weapons, unity, nerve, and shelter, and you get something no predator on that savanna had ever dealt with before: prey that could outthink being eaten. And now, here's the part one promised you. That feeling you get walking through a dark parking lot, when your chest tightens and you speed up without deciding to? That's not random anxiety. That is a multi-million-year-old alarm system, built by ancestors who needed that exact feeling to survive one more night. You're still carrying it. Right now. Today. This is the part one actually wants you to sit with. You are descended from the survivors of an unbelievably merciless filtering process. The ones who were cautious enough, cooperative enough, and clever enough to make it through hundreds of thousands of years of being actively hunted. The instinct to check a dark room before walking in. The comfort you feel near a fire, or in a group, instead of alone. None of that is random. It's inherited. We didn't win this fight because we were the strongest species out there. We weren't, not even close. We won it because we were the most adaptable, the ones who turned cooperation, tools, and fire into a survival system nothing on that savanna had ever seen. And if you think about it, that's still exactly how we solve our biggest problems today. So here's what I keep thinking about. Every person watching this exists because somewhere back in that chain, a small group of outnumbered hominids made the right call, at the right moment, over and over, for millions of years straight. One wrong decision anywhere along the way, and none of us would be here to talk about it. That's not a history lesson. That's the actual reason you're alive. So tell me, genuinely, no wrong answers, if you got dropped into that world tomorrow with your group, no weapons, no fire yet, just each other, what's the first thing you try to do to make it through night one? Drop it in the comments. I'm going through every single one, and I want to see what you'd actually try first. And if this changed how you think about human history even a little, subscribe, because next week I'm covering the one predator early humans feared even more than the lion. And what the evidence suggests about how it hunted us is genuinely disturbing. I'll see you in the next one.